Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming here tonight. The meeting was left open, so there's no need to open the meeting like we normally would, our standard town board meeting. Before we open the public hearing, I will just make a brief statement. Over the course of the last 3 years, that's a rough estimate, by the way. There have been a multitude of letters for and against short-term rental regulations. These letters have been reviewed and are on file with the town clerk. Just want to make that clear to the public at large here. I will just make anyone that's going to be speaking tonight aware that we don't have that large of a crowd, but we try to keep people to around 3 minutes. I'm a little bit more liberal than maybe I should in giving with the speaking times, but try to be mindful of that. With that being said, would any member of the board entertain a motion to open the public hearing for short-term rental local law number 1 of 2024, regulating STRs in the town of Hay? So we got, I've got Jack making the motion to open the hearing. Marty, do you want to second it? Yeah. Second. All those in favor? Carried. Would anyone like to speak for or against the proposed short-term rental regulation? A current copy of this is, as our town clerk mentioned, is over there on the table and also can be viewed online. Or did you?
Yes, I did tell everybody.
Okay, super. What's that? You do?
Yeah.
Please do.
Let me just stand up. Just need to respectful.
Murdy, you have the floor.
Okay. I looked at my draft. Where do I stand?
Right up here.
Just state your name, please.
Okay. Meredith Klingler.
That's all.
You can sit back a little bit. You don't have to be so much, but
Just
thank you. Just try to project.
I
That's
just
all.
want to give you his call.
Do your best.
Hopefully the draft I read is not too different from the final draft. I looked at it quickly. I think it's pretty similar. And I do have some concerns, but I want to just preface it with a little background so that you know my concerns aren't stemming from self-preservation of a current rental situation. I'm the youngest of 8 kids, so we each get our 2 weeks from the middle of June to the end of September. We're booked through, just with my family alone. So my concerns are not stemming from a current rental situation that we're doing, all right? I do have a couple questions. Do we know the number of rentals that are going on in Hague and Silver Bay, approximately?
55?
55.
But there's, excuse me, Josh, there's 55 that are registered with Warren County, but if you go on to Airbnb, Varbo, the other one, and rent by owner, it's up to about 76.
Okay.
The last time I researched it.
Okay, so the second question is, of those 76, what percentage are posing a problem now?
What do you say a problem is?
Yes, what percentage are posing, I know there are some problems with noise or abuse or overuse, like what percentage of those rentals are actually posing a problem now? My second question is I feel like maybe some of the proposals that are in the draft are stemmed out of fear of what might happen or what could happen. So that's my concern, like how much of these are actually stemmed in a large percentage of rental problems that are currently happening right now, not just something we're fearful of. And then maybe in light of that, some of these areas seem like a little bit of a government overreach, and maybe it could be a little simplified, and when it becomes a problem, then we implement some of these more bigger things. One of the concerns was just allowing CEO to inspect rental houses. I mean, the police don't even come in without a search warrant. So that's kind of like, whoa, that's a little bit of an overreach. Why not wait until there's actually a problem with a rental unit and then maybe consider that?
This is crazy.
Another concern I have is I understand the fear, and also it's actually happening of outside investors coming in and just buying up a property and then renting it, and they're never on the premises. I get that. However, I want to be sympathetic for the working families. We got ours. We inherited ours from our parents, so we're in a fortunate situation. But I'm thinking of the working families who are struggling. They can just barely find and afford a piece of property. And then we have the taxes. And they may get, what, 2 weeks? A year vacation, maybe 4? And they have to rent just to meet the taxes. So I was wondering, could we make a compromise on that 3-year deal where, okay, for the first 3 years, you can't rent for more than 4 weeks? And that would certainly discourage the investors, because that's not going to work for them. But it would let the homeowner who needs to rent, and they genuinely want this as their permanent vacation home, retirement home, it gives them a little leeway to help meet the tax liability that they're facing.
Can I have a question? Can I ask you a question while you're just bringing that question up? How are they meeting the tax liability now?
All right.
Yeah.
So
But again, she didn't say they're not gonna.
Let me have the floor though, just to answer. I think Murdy maybe misinterpreted the short-term rental local law. What the regulation states is any property purchased after January 1st, 2025 would have a 3-year waiting period before they can become a short-term rental. Is that what, do you understand that correct?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm not speaking out of a self-preservation here. I'm thinking of families who are purchasing for the first time. You know, like maybe there could be a compromise instead of saying a blanket no rental for 3 years, saying, well, you can have a 4-week rental, and that is going to discourage investors because they're looking for 16-week rental or more. But it gives the homeowner, this working family, the people who have kids in school and can just make it up a couple weeks, it gives them a little bit
Okay.
of rental. You know, that's just my suggestion.
Okay, I just want to make sure you understood.
No, I know, it applies to new purchases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Murdy, did you have anything else?
No,
Okay. So we're just so you know though, folks, we're not going to get into a back and forth and you just like.
He asked a question.
Okay. Well, then I'm wrong. I apologize.
He asked a question.
We're going to try to. Okay. Well, let's just try
You're right,
to.
I did.
You're right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So.
And she asked a question of the board about the 76 people that are on short-term rentals right now. Which of those 76 are causing a problem? And I didn't hear an answer for that. Who was that for? Who was that directed to, the board or to?
yeah, the percentage of I know there are some. I know there's some problem properties. But my question is, of those 76, what percentage of those are actually causing a problem now? And
Let me just, not to interrupt, but has that calculation been done? Has anybody,
We are aware of some situations, but we don't have data that suggests what percentage of the 76, because it's all very subjective.
right.
I mean, I can tell you there's definitely people that I've spoken to that have big problems with their neighbors, and they feel that it's infringing on their way of life, and but it's very opinion based. But again, this is not a Q&A session. This is for the public to come and take 3 minutes a person and speak to the town board expressing your concerns, and then the town board goes back and forth and we have a discussion. I don't think that we have to keep in accordance with Robert's rules of how we conduct meetings. And I think that's the way it has to be in a public setting. Murdy, did you have anything else you'd like to
No,
add?
I would just summarize, my concern is that maybe we're jumping the gun on some of these proposals out of fear of what might happen. So maybe it could just be scaled back and then address those issues when they actually happen instead of addressing them now in fear.
Okay. Thank you, Murdy. Appreciate it.
Online,
Let's,
ABF has a question.
maybe let's just go with all the, I think, for people that are here in the audience,
Okay.
I think it's most appropriate that
Okay.
they physically showed up here, so I think that we give them the floor, but we will give the Zoomers the floor. Gentlemen, sir.
John Giles, Silver Bay. I just wanted to second her suggestion because when I read the regulations, the only way my family can, my brothers and I can afford our cottage is by renting it. And when I read the regulations, a 3-year hiatus would preclude me from buying out my brothers. So
That's not
I
true,
think
though.
her,
That's not true, though. It's only
Yeah,
for
that's not-
arm's
that's
length
the way I read it.
transact. Oh, never mind, I won't interrupt. I shouldn't have done that.
That's the way I read it.
Okay.
So, that's all I want to say.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you, by the way. It would not preclude you, though, because it allows for, if it's not an arm's length transaction, meaning if it's a related transaction to you, your brother, your son, your daughter, you would not have a 3-year waiting period.
Okay, well, okay. I didn't understand that.
No problem, I just wanted to,
Any transfer, I figure to get a deed is a quote, legal arm's length transaction, so.
no, that would not be the case in your situation. Did anyone like to have the floor? Please.
Mark Eustace, I had a family property up here for over 70 years. I do have a lot of questions to this board. I've written 3 letters to the board. I never got a confirmation that anybody received them or answered any of my questions. And I agree, I really would like to see the violations. I'd like to see how many there are. I'm sure there are. But how big a problem is this? And you answered one of my questions. The arm's length means that if I decide I want to give this property down to my children, they're not going to have a 3-year waiting period.
Correct.
Okay. I'd also like to thank you for taking out the 6-day minimum. I didn't see it, right?
It's not there.
That's gone.
There's a 3-day minimum for new property purchases after the date of January 1st, 2025.
Thank you.
Only.
I wasn't sure if anybody was listening to me. You know, I'd like to get a confirmation if I sent an email that somebody at least is on the other side of it. So you were listening. So that's one of my concerns. My other concern is how are you going to enforce the violations, and exactly what will the violations be? I mean, where I live, you have a police report. So if it becomes 2 parties that are arguing over something, there's documentation. I don't know how you're going to do that. Do we have any law enforcement at Hague?
Well, we're governed by the Sheriff's Department from Warren County, from a,
So it would have to be the sheriff's, I'm just saying, all the violations and page after page of penalties, if it comes down to a legal matter where, say I don't get along with my next door neighbor, luckily I do, but if something goes down, or even my kids have the property, if it becomes a thing where they're gonna call the cops, the slightest infraction, I think you're going to need concrete evidence, like you would any place else. You know, it's a police report. What'd you do? Okay, they were out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, drinking, throwing bottles. Okay. Then you have some concrete evidence. The way it is now, it's almost like he said, she said. And I don't know. That's my concern.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak for or against?
Roger Sachs, I live on Crumbs Point. Not for or against, I thought I'd share something. In the spirit of not reinventing the wheel, I used the artificial intelligence engine of ChatGPT to basically scour. There's thousands of these meetings that have happened around the country. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, read all the town and municipal codes that have changed the United States over the last 5 years, focused on short-term rentals, specific to small towns that are seasonal, vacation-oriented. Tell me the most successful 4 or 5 rules with a focus on a balance of peace and quiet on one side and allowing monetary benefit and renting on the other. Give me 4 or 5 of the best rules and give me one out-of-the-box idea. So, ChatGPT, you can do this. It doesn't cost, well, I actually pay for the premium, so I don't have a delay on the 2-year delay, but in a compliment to what you guys have done, most of these rules are very consistent around the entire country. Here are the 5 that ChatGPT came back with. 1, permit requirements and registration. Implement a system where owners are required to register their property and obtain a permit. 2, occupancy limits and duration of stay requirements. Set limits on the number of occupants per rental. That's one that's not in there, but it's close. And restrict duration of stays that can help reduce noise and neighborhood disruption. Number 3, zoning and density controls, designating specific zones where short-term rentals are allowed or capping the number of rentals in a certain area will help prevent the oversaturation of vacation rentals. Number 4, good neighbor policies, requiring rental owners to adhere to good neighbor policies, including noise ordinances and trash disposal rules, helps minimize disturbances. Number 5, taxes and fees. This can help offset, taxation and fees. Impose taxes and fees for short-term rentals with revenues earmarked for affordable housing initiatives and community services. And then plus, one out-of-the-box idea could be a community karma system for short-term rentals. This idea focuses on building a supportive community environment that encourages good behavior among both hosts and guests without the emphasis on a tattletale system. So, these, again, thousands of examples across the country. I don't have an axe to grind. I've never intended on renting my property. I have neighbors on both sides of me to do. I think they do a very good job. So I don't have a horse in the race. I just thought I'd share with you, what the other hundreds or thousands of communities across the country have done in retrospect to this exact thing.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson.
Good evening, all. Tony Dawson, 9574 Lakeshore. I just want to address a couple of the questions that came up because I have personal knowledge of it. I would first recommend to the board that you better define what an arm's length transaction is. Obviously, there's some confusion, and I don't know where the line in the sand is with a family member, and if that is a true definition. Up until last year, I had phone requested any and all complaints related to short-term rentals. There were none. Until this past summer, our neighbor to our south did make a complaint. The police did respond. It was in response to tenants cheering on their soccer game at 8 p.m.
What were they doing at 8 p.m.?
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker? Mr. Klingler.
Tim Klingler, 7 Seneca Way. This is the 3rd time coming before you guys.
We welcome you back.
So one concern I have is the power that the ZEO, one person, has. And it doesn't matter who that person is, to be able to have the power that is displayed. What I see is in this proposal, or this draft, is it's a lot for one person. So my suggestion would be to have at least 3 people making those kind of decisions, because let's just say, for example, you have an argument or the CEO doesn't like you, or does like you. I mean, just human nature, you could try and be very impartial, but I'm concerned. If you're on the good side of the CEO, you get whatever you want. If you're on the bad side of the CEO, forget getting anything. So that's my concern, having one person have that much control. I mean, our system of government is set up with checks and balances, so that one person can't dictate to the governed what can be done. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Would anyone else like the floor that's here in attendance physically? The gentleman with the tie.
Thank you. I've seen a lot of ties. Andrew Gilchrist, as the board knows, I do represent Model Properties. Tony Dawson is one of the principals of that. I thank the board for allowing me to submit the written comments. I thank the town clerk for distributing them. I do appreciate that. And I also appreciate the town attorney being open to discussing the law before tonight, so thank you for that. I can, believe me, 3 minutes for a lawyer is very difficult, so I'm going to rely on my letter. I'm going to hand you another copy just so you have it handy, and you may have it electronically, but I'll hand that up for you. I just want the board to focus on a couple of things and when considering this law. And I start with the proposition here that in the town, reviewing your code, in 2009, the town board did amend its zoning law to allow for one-family dwelling for rent or hire. So that is already addressed in your code, and it does allow for the very use that results in short-term rentals. So from a zoning law perspective, the town had already regulated this. Under your zoning law, Article 9, there are certain regulations regarding rentals. It doesn't distinguish between long-term, short-term, but there are regulations for rentals. So from a zoning perspective, those that are currently using it are using it in compliance with the zoning law for use that's allowed in all zoning districts, and those uses are vested. So I start by asking, does your local law amend that? It doesn't say it on the face of the law. In discussions with your town attorney, I think that's intended, but the law doesn't say that. And if the board does intend on amending its zoning law, this law should state that to make it clear for the regulated public that those regulations regarding rentals that are currently in your zoning law either are or are not still in effect, given your consideration of your short-term rental law. That doesn't say it. If you adopt the law in its current form, I think your code's going to be internally inconsistent. Probably makes sense if you are intent on moving forward to clarify that. That would result in a revision, and just procedurally that should be reintroduced in another public hearing. If you're intent on moving forward, I'm going to rely on my letter and ask you to take a look at those issues we raised regarding legal issues, constitutional issues. These are not unusual. These have been raised previously. We did hear about other laws that are across the country. These issues have been litigated across the country. They're equal protection issues. They're due process issues. They are putting the enforcement ability in one person without due process of law. These things I'm going to ask you to take a look at, give some thought to. I appreciate the board and the town has been working on this for some time. I've been in advising boards in this position. I acknowledge that. But if the town is intent on moving forward, you're going to try to eliminate issues and not create issues. I don't think anyone benefits with that approach. A couple of things to really focus on. We talked about the 3-year term. And I know the intent may be, we want to make sure our current owners have some benefit. But looking at it from a different perspective, it really does restrain the ability of that current owner with that vested right in the short-term rental to sell or to alienate that property. If someone says, I'd like to buy that, but I'm not going to be able to engage in that legal use for 3 years, that hurts the marketability and the legal ability to transfer that property for its market value. Think about that. I understand the intent to protect current owners, but from an alienability, the ability to transfer your property, which is everyone's property right, that 3-year prohibition is really going to impact that. I ask you also to take a hard look at the exceptions for tourist accommodations. I spelled that out in my comment letter, and I'll just ask you to take a hard look at that. There's some procedural issues I've raised as well, under the municipal home rule law, under the general municipal law, and quite frankly, under the state environmental quality review law. It doesn't appear to me, maybe I've not seen the full record, I didn't see it on the website, that all those procedural requirements have been adhered to. I'm going to try to limit to 3 minutes.
You're over, but just try to make an effort to
I appreciate
move it
that.
along.
And as I said, very difficult for lawyers to say hello in 3 minutes. It's a little bit tight. So I'm going to hand up extra copies, and I do ask you to take a hard look at these issues before you act. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. And I do thank you for your time. And I'll add that my client thanks you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Would anyone else physically here in public like to speak for or against? Kathy Clark? I'll put you down next, Sandra.
That's okay. The only biggest thing is the definition of a bedroom. If you're going to have Warren County code officers define how many bedrooms a house has, it should use Warren County, New York State building codes. In my tenure, I've always used New York State building codes to define a bedroom. Your description of a bedroom is open for debate. Later on down the line, somebody's saying, hey, it says I have a door and I have a window, so it's a bedroom. That's not building codes. So I've asked for that to be eliminated. An operating door and a window. A door could be into a closet, and the window, if it's not an egress window of 5.7 square feet, it's not qualified for an egress to the outside of a building. So I just asked you to amend or remove those words from the bedroom and reference New York State building codes, since you put the determination of how many bedrooms a house in Warren County building codes.
Thank you. I'll stick to my word. Please, you have the floor.
All right, so when, I think it was June, I'm not sure, we've been back and forth with this so many times, but haven't we been out? I'm thinking it was June when we first did Let's Make Comments from the Floor. And I had mentioned 3 things that I was concerned about, and I don't see anything about that in this. One of the things was the possible violations. Nothing is stated as to proof of a violation. So if my neighbor calls, which I'm sure has happened, and says, those kids are out there screaming and yelling and jumping in the lake and splashing and making noise, that's a quote. If I have a videotape of this complaint that they had, all right, and it's during the day, 10 o'clock in the morning, the kids are jumping off the dock, they are splashing and making noise, I mean, they are kids. Is that a reasonable complaint? How many times can they call with a complaint like this and going, they're making noise. I don't want that noise, all right? Well, they're splashing, they're playing, they're swimming. To them, that's a complaint, but is that considered a reasonable complaint? And if I have that on videotape, and the CEO comes or the CEO comes to my house, I go, hey, here it is, right on my camera. They complain these kids make noise, but it was 10 o'clock in the morning. There were 2 kids jumping off the dock. Is that considered a reasonable complaint? And how many times can my neighbor call and have complaints like that? Do they get fined or sued for having complaints? That was one thing. Nothing was ever mentioned about that, what you're going to do about that. The other is the 30 minutes thing, all right? I am 30 minutes from here. Rachel's only 20 minutes. But to be honest with you, I don't know about anybody else, whether they're renting or not. If I go out in the boat and I go down to Bolton Landing, I don't have a plane to get me back up here in 30 minutes. I'm being honest, I don't know anyone. If I go to the dentist in Glens Falls. So sometimes I think if I'm not there within 30 minutes, but if I talk to them on the phone, is that okay? That is what I would like to know as that 30-minute time frame. If it just happens to be a time that I'm going to the dentist or down the lake. And the other thing is garbage cans. I had put forth a proposal, can we build a little shed around the garbage cans? My drive, I'm 71. Dragging those the cans up the driveway is very difficult for me. So I leave them at the top. Can I make a planter thing that hides my garbage cans that can be taken out when Casella comes? Last year, Casella didn't come for 4 days because they had no drivers, so the cans sit there. I would like to know about the trash can thing that's on there. Can we do something that we can hide the cans rather than drag them away? That's just, maybe next time when we have this meeting, you could tell me the answer to it. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Mente.
Patrick Mente, West Lake Road. We've gone over and over this for months, and what I found is that the town board has provided zero data to support any of this draft law. We have not been shown factual information, data sets, formal complaints filed with authorities, or proof that this entire law is not in direct conflict with the town's existing zoning laws. All we have heard from the small few in favor of this law is anecdotal information and hearsay. We all did our due diligence when purchasing our homes in Hay. All of our short-term rentals fall under the current zoning laws, which allows us to do exactly what we're doing. Furthermore, on July 27, 2023, then Councilperson Patchett, on video and on record, established that short-term rentals are, quote, are not an issue today, but could be an issue in 10 to 20 years from now. If this were true, then why is there no grandfather clause with a blanket exemption for existing short-term rentals? If there is no data to support any of this draft law, and then Councilperson Patchett believes that there are no issues with current short-term rentals, we short-term rental owners have been asking ourselves, what is the town board trying to protect? This is a plan that doesn't work to fix a problem that doesn't exist. I come forward with a solution. Amend the existing zoning laws and provide a blanket grandfather clause exempting existing short-term rentals from this law.
Thank you, Mr. Mente. Would anyone else like to speak tonight that's here in person? Please.
John Giles again. Thinking about the enforcement and the complaints, I'm not so sure there is in here enough leeway, because as a renter, you try your best to get good renters, and if someone is not a good renter, you don't ever rent to them again. So some of what this lady mentioned could naturally happen, people complaining about people doing normal things, or even if it's a legitimate complaint for a renter that happens once, it falls against the owner rather than the renter, who we will never rent to again. So I'm just not sure that there's enough language in here to allow for reasonable flexibility for how you conduct your business.
Thank you, Mr. Niles. Mr. Dawson.
I'll be quick. Tony Dawson again. I just wanted to touch base on the 30 minutes agent or owner to respond.
Can you move your butt from the camera, please?
I know where my butt is. I know where it's Is this good? So the complaint that I made reference earlier, the one and only complaint that is of record today, the state police ended up taking the complaint. When I called, I was told that because I was not a tenant or present, I was not a party to the complaint, and I therefore may or may not be entitled to the police report. If I was, it would take months to get, and I did provide this in writing along with the correspondence from the troopers and the incident report. So if we're owners of property and we have a short-term rental, in New York State, technically they are a tenant in possession. Very different than a tourist accommodation. We do not have the right to show up or have our agent show up and tell the tenants to vacate the property. As a matter of fact, it would be illegal without a court order issuing a dismissal of the tenant. So the idea of an agent or an owner responding to a potential conflict, as Sandy referenced, where kids are having a good time down at the lake, we're not going to be able to do anything about it. If it was a hotel tourist accommodation, yes, that's a different story. You have a problem guest, you can get them out. In a short-term rental dynamic, you do not have that luxury. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
I have 3 people online in order.
We're going to continue to hear out the people that are physically here, and then we will move to the Zoomers. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak for or against physically? You haven't yet.
Dylan Mankey, Graphite Mountain Road. I just wanted to stand, and I've talked before at other meetings, but I wanted to come forward and say we've seen at the other public hearings and town board meetings the overwhelming majority of the community to either not have an ordinance completely or to not have one with so much local government overreach, not have the government's hand on their property. What I ask of the board is to please take into account the multiple meetings and the letters, the emails, and the speaking of everybody in attendance at those meetings. Just please listen to what people say and take that into account when you make your final decision. Thank you.
Appreciate it very much so. Is there anyone else here in person that would like to speak for or against? Okay, we're going to move on to the Zoomers.
Alexandra?
Hi, my name is Alexandra Pinocchio. I'm with the law firm Bartlett and Rose. I'm a law clerk here on behalf of Becky Bitter. The resident of one of our clients is a resident of Hague, and so we just had one comment about this law. We just wanted to recommend to the board that they retain special counsel for review of legislation. Given that the town attorney may have a conflict of interest because he is part of his own private firm and they represent clients in the area who would benefit from this legislation. So that is our comment, and we would just like to request that special counsel is retained in this matter. Thank you.
Did you get that, John?
Sorry, I didn't understand why you think I have a conflict of interest.
I am representing firms, so I just want to be clear that I am representing what we have been told, and our client has concerns that there are conflicts of interest with the town attorney, and so that special counsel be retained.
I'm not aware of any conflict of interest that I have, but if you can cite me something specific, your firm has my email, you've got my phone number, please let me know, because I certainly don't want to be in a position where I do have a conflict of interest. But I'm not aware of it.
Sure, the firm has also provided a letter to the town, and so I am sure that Ms. Bitter will be in further conversation.
Okay, well, thanks.
Jill Mantel? Are you any longer with us?
Joe.
Amy McFreely? Maybe not.
That's it, button it up.
Guess not. They have been unmuted, so maybe give the opportunity to speak. Wait to see if they reply again, or they may be opening their computer.
Okay. Do we have anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak their mind for or against?
But I guess Amy really don't mean. Amy? I know.
The mics are off.
Yeah, they don't know how to do it.
We don't have anything, Tim, from the Zoomers?
I have one more to find and unmute.
One more, all right, let's just be patient.
Is anybody else sitting here?
Yeah, is there anyone else in person? We'll go back to the room since we're having I won't call it technical difficulties,
No,
but.
it's technical.
Oh, it is technical?
I had trouble with this, mine kept going in and out completely.
Technology is a wonderful thing.
May have dropped out.
All right, let's go. You mean our internet providing service?
Crashed.
Can you communicate with anybody on there? Is Amanda on there?
Well, while we have this momentary failure, did anyone from the board have anything that they'd like to say to the community physically here? And are they able to hear us on Zoom still?
Yes.
They are. Did anyone from the board have any comments on the STR proposed regulation while we're waiting in limbo to see if there's anyone else? We'll leave the public hearing open for consideration.
Dave Martucci would like to speak. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Dave was asked to unmute, so he's going to speak now. Thanks.
Hey, you have the floor, Dave.
Hey, Josh. Okay, are you guys going to be voting on this tonight, this proposal tonight? Or are you going to keep the meeting open?
It's going to be at the pleasure of the board. We're going to conclude the public hearing, and I am going to ask the town board what their opinion is on the matter and everything that's been said here tonight, and make the determination at that point in time if there will be a vote. There could be a vote. Yes, Dave.
Okay, there are a lot of concerns that I think the board really needs to consider about what has been said this evening. And I will be glad to discuss it with you.
Okay.
Okay. Jill Mentes?
Was that Jill Mente?
Yes. Sorry for butchering your name.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Did somebody call for Jill Mente?
Yes.
That's me. I've been unmuted now.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. My son is sick, so I'm home with him. But I did want to thank you for the additional time that you've taken with the proposed short-term rental law. We as short-term rental owners appreciate the changes that have already been made, and they're big improvements. However, there is a need for additional changes. We feel that there's still more work to be done. I would ask that you please don't rush into this law, as it could have negative implications on the town and in the future, which nobody wants. We all love the town, we all want the town to succeed. So we want this, everyone to take due diligence, because this is a big deal. I have just a few following concerns that I'd really like you to take the time to consider reasonable updates on. Number one, there are many areas of the proposed law that are very vague and can be easily misinterpreted. Wording such as other designated agents, reasonable conditions and restrictions, performance standards, special conditions, those phrases like that need to be defined. Leaving phrases like these open to interpretation will just cause misunderstanding and difficulty for everyone involved. Number two, you're exempting all, quote, commercial tourist accommodations such as hotels, resorts, motels, inns, or campgrounds, quote, from this law. However, you are treating short-term rentals, which are private dwellings, as such when you subject us to inspections, violation fees, and more. I would ask that you either include commercial tourist accommodations in this law or remove the commercial tourist accommodations requirements for short-term rentals. The law, as it is written now, seems discriminatory. Number three, and the largest issue that I see, is that, again, you're trying to fix a problem that does not yet exist. We would suggest and request that you consider exempting all current short-term rental owners from this entire law and add a blanket grandfather clause. Any future short-term rentals after January 1st, 2025 could be subject to the law in order to slow the growth and limit any potential future problems as you're worried about. And I think if this is the case, there would be little opposition. So thank you again, and please consider reviewing these issues. We all love the town of Hague, and we just want what's best for everyone. Thank you.
Laura Becker? I'm sorry.
Thank you. First, I just want to say I love what the last speaker said. Thank you so much. Articulate and clear. My family and I were short-term renters for 50 years, and then we were finally able to buy property 6 years ago. We're so delighted. I'm just going to raise two issues tonight. First, the proposed ordinance includes inspections from the town of Hague to be sure homes are up to code, inspections from the fire department of Warren County, verifying that homes are up to code, and obtaining a Lake George wastewater treatment care card. This is all designed to be sure that homes are well maintained and safe. Is there a reason why the owners of short-term rentals alone should be the only ones subject to these requirements? If we agree that these are important and contribute to the community's peace, safety, and well-being, should these requirements be applicable for all homeowners to foster a uniformly safe environment across our community? That's my first question, and here is my second question. If the proposed ordinance were passed as is, and all short-term rental owners were immediately made aware of it, and they dropped everything they did starting tomorrow to comply with the inspection by the CEO, the inspection by the Warren County Fire Department, and getting the Lake George Park Commission care card, could those entities adequately support the owners in this transition? I seriously question whether that is feasible for those entities and whether that would actually constitute a burden for them. Thank you.
Amy McFreely? Right there.
Amy McFeely? Yes, here we go. So here's my question, take two. Thank you guys for this evening. There is something at the end of the proposal that says, any change to this local law proposed by the town board other than adjusting the application fee will require notice and a hearing of at least 30 days. My question is, why is there an exception for adjusting the fee? That's my first question. The second question is, the fees that are potentially collected, has there been any decision or thought about where those fees would be utilized? Thank you.
Dave Martucci again?
Okay, Dave Martucci is here.
There you go.
Chuck, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. Are you guys going to be voting this evening?
Asked and answered?
He said, you're voting this evening.
I gave him an answer, asked and answered. I thought I answered that question clearly. I'm going to ask my other members of the board and get their opinion on what they want to do. Right now, this is the time for a public hearing. That is a possibility, Dave.
Okay, our signal is going in and out, so anyways, I do have several concerns about what has been raised tonight and about the inability of property owners to control their short-term renters as resort owners do. So I think that can really adversely impact neighboring properties. So I think the board might consider weighing what people have said and the responses this evening. Maybe you might want to take an extra month to review exactly what happened this evening.
Okay.
Is there another person on?
Is there anybody else online that wishes to speak? John Proctor. Okay, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go. John?
Hi, how you doing? First of all, thank you for having this meeting.
About 42 years ago, I started off as a renter, and it took over 30 years for me to actually become a homeowner. So we all love Silver Bay, which is where we are, and the town. I think this is a rule, when I started reading it, in search of the problem. Early on, I heard that there are potentially 76 different houses that may be up for short-term rental. I don't know if that's a hard figure or just looking at rentals that might be on the internet. Years ago, before we retired, we also rented short-term, and I think the first question the town has to be asking is, why are people renting their homes? And I think that they're renting their homes because they're trying to meet all the taxes and costs of owning a second home, in my case, or even owning a primary home. We used to rent our house, and I think the reason we were doing so is because we were trying to afford taxes. We don't really have very many services. We don't have public water. We don't have public sewage like other areas of town. We don't have garbage pickup. And most recently, and we don't have children that are going through the school system. And to me, I look at this permitting and I think it is in fact another tax on homeowners, especially homeowners who probably are renting their homes to try to cover these costs. And most recently, Lake George has now started an annual permitting fee and an inspection program for septic systems. And because we don't have sewage, we also have to deal with costs and hopefully can tackle whatever has to be done with our sewer. So I think when you're looking at passing rules that affect people's income, when you're looking at rules that can affect people's ability to try to make some money to cover the taxes that they're faced with, especially the onerous school taxes, which I think are ridiculous for this town. I think the town really wanted to take some action in terms of making houses affordable. One of the things that needed to be tackled is taxes. Not so much town taxes, but school taxes. I was there last summer. I went to 2 school meetings over at Ticonderoga. I believe we send 36 students from our town to Ticonderoga, and we're now shouldering about 50% or more of the taxes. So I think if you're looking at the whole issue of making housing affordable, one of the things that makes housing affordable isn't just the house itself, it's the ongoing taxes. And I, for one, would love to see the town take an action, bring on professional help to review this law and see if we can't change it. I mean, when you look at national laws around the country in elections right now, the right of parents to send their children to choice schools is becoming a major issue in politics. And I think it's a major issue, not only for all of us, but for people who are facing the taxes and the tax burdens of Ticonderoga through their school system. So I am against this rule. I think it's a further burden for people who are trying to pay these taxes. And I sincerely hope that this rule as it now stands is not going to be passed tonight. And I think there were so many great comments about law enforcement, about not being able to dismiss renters who may be a problem. I think you just can't go out and make a rule tonight without considering all the great information that other speakers have brought to you. Thanks very much for taking your time to listen tonight, and I appreciate that.
Vicki Gallo?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Vicki Gallo. We have been coming up to beautiful Lake George for over 50 years. We've been owners for about 15 years. And I just asked the board to just take time to consider the comments that you've heard tonight. There have been so many good suggestions. Thank you very much to Mr. Purpura, who just spoke, and Ms. Mentes, who laid out many of the concerns that I share. So I won't repeat them all, but I just feel that you've taken so much time, and I really do appreciate that you have taken time to consider the repercussions of such an ordinance, the need and repercussions. So by taking a little longer, by listening to the comments tonight, you're taking the time to get it right. And I think that is of the utmost importance for the town, for neighbors and for the flavor of the town. So I do appreciate your holding the hearing. Thank you.
Casey and Brett?
Hi, this is Casey. Hopefully you can hear me. I appreciate all the comments that have been made tonight. I feel like there's been a lot of great input. There have also been a lot of great questions, and I'm asking the board, are we going to get any answers to those questions? Because that would really help me to understand what you're trying to achieve with this legislation, but also to understand how it impacts me. I've been coming to the area for 50 years also. I love Hague, I love Lake George. I was finally able to achieve the dream of owning a home up there. And yes, we rent our house to help us cover the costs. I'm not against there being legislation, but I'm asking the board, are you going to reply to any of the questions that have been asked tonight?
You guys want to reply to any of the questions?
Is there another speaker? I
There
think
is.
right now we're not going to do Q&A as previously have stated.
Okay.
I think I'm off mute.
Yep, Alexandra, you're next.
I just wanted to follow up with my previous comment. I have spoken with my supervisor, and there was a question about conflict of interest with representing the Cunninghams and Oxford cottages, and so that was a specific conflict of interest that we were concerned about since they are attempting to do short-term rentals. That's it.
Is Casey and Brett?
No.
He's like Casey and Brett as well.
Josh.
Josh, just let me, you have special counsel on that because of the conflict. Mark Shatner is the one that's involved in that, not me.
There's your answer to that. I don't know if you heard. For Cunningham Oxford Cottages, the town of Hague has retained special counsel in Mark Schackner. Thank you. Was there?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So, Mark Schackner is special counsel for the town in this matter.
Correct.
Thank you.
Not on short-term rentals, but on that particular litigation that is taking place. I hope that makes sense.
But the request was that there be special counsel as well because the Cunninghams are a short-term rental, and so it has a conflict of interest with the town attorney.
I would take exception to that. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said I'm taking exception to that. I don't represent the Cunninghams, and so I don't see any conflict. So I'm going to take exception to your position on that, respectfully.
Okay.
Thank you.
That means disagree, I believe. Okay.
Yes, I got that. But thank you.
Just wanted to relay that. Thank you. Was there anyone else online who would like to speak? Let's take an intermission here.
Sandra Russ wants to speak.
Yep. Go ahead, Sandra. You can.
Hello.
You can, go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you to everybody who has put so much work into this. I was a member of the short-term rental committee. It was a tremendous learning process, and I have continued to evolve my thoughts about the short-term rental ordinance since being on that committee and from listening to everybody who has taken the time to participate. I think the point that I saw tonight was this is I believe the third public hearing on this ordinance, and the same points keep being made over and over and over. It is my opinion that this ordinance does not have widespread support from the citizens of Hague. I have communicated my feelings to the town board in numerous letters, which are public record if anybody wants to see those. My main issues of concern are the 3-year moratorium. I think that's definitely unfair to property owners. Also, one thing that I want to make people aware of is that there really is not a lot in the ordinance regarding what would be a violation in terms of noise or aggravation to a neighboring property. So even though a sheriff could come, he's probably not going to know what he's even trying to enforce. I've made my opinion to the board that without a noise ordinance in town, without something concrete that a law enforcement officer can recognize as something being done, that the law has very little teeth to protect an aggrieved neighbor. I think that I've also brought up to the town, and I'd love to know other people's opinions about this. When there have been other huge issues in town, the school annexation, the sewer district, and when we did have a proposed noise ordinance, which by the way did fail in the town of Hague. It was voted down by the citizens of the town of Hague. But those major issues that have affected every property owner in Hague have been put to a public vote. So that's just a question that I'm throwing out there. That doesn't mean that it would go the way that I want it to go, or the way anyone would want it to go. But there's a point where you have to say, is that the most fair thing to do for the town? A tremendous amount of work has been done on it, but that doesn't mean that there isn't more work to be done. So I don't feel that the town, in the best interest of the citizens of Hague, should be voting on this tonight. I honestly don't really know what the next step is other than more input on a committee basis, maybe like not many more committees, but on a breakout group of all factors all factions in the town who have a vested interest to work together to perhaps craft a better document. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Mark Barber, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So I have to agree with Sandra on this. It seems like there's not widespread support for this from the people that you're elected to represent. My biggest concerns with it are also the fact that there's one zoning administrator who's responsible for enforcing all of these regulations. In order for me to get my zoning compliance certificate after doing renovation work, I had to physically chase down the zoning administrator and bring him to my property because he would not answer the phone. So to see that there's 76 properties that are going to be under this ordinance that are going to need to be enforced by one zoning administrator seems very counterproductive. You're not going to be able to enforce these fairly and effectively. And the same goes for Warren County. I would imagine that they have the same, would have the same response to this, in that they have to come here and physically inspect all of these properties. It's going to be quite a burden. So I ask that you take a look at that and consider that. And my other concern is that there's no due process for homeowners. If a neighbor wants to complain about noise, how is a homeowner going to have the ability to present their side of the case? Just to issue a violation because somebody feels that they're violating the ordinance, to me is not fair or appropriate. So I ask that those things be thought about and more time be placed on whether or not this ordinance should be moved forward, considering the lack of support it seems to have.
Tim, is there anyone else on Zoom?
Heidi Gallo?
Yeah, hi, sorry, this is actually Karen Gallo. I just wanted to say I agree and wholeheartedly support everyone's sentiment tonight. I just want to say, because I feel like the majority of us here are speaking to the choir, I'm curious, there has to be at least one person who's here who felt strongly about having this ordinance. Otherwise, I don't, like many people said, why are we even having this? So I'm just throwing out there, like, if someone's had some awful experience that said, hey, I support this because of X, Y, and Z, I think a lot of us may like to hear that, or at least I would, because I think, again, as I've said, it seems like we're all in the same boat, preaching to the choir. So I just say that because I'd love to hear some more of the other side, since it doesn't feel like we're necessarily understanding, why we have a need for the STR. So thank you so much, appreciate it.
John's having a problem with his cell phone.
Who is it? You mean the next speaker?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any additional speakers other than John, while we're?
Other than that, not at this time. Nobody else is asked to speak.
We'll give John, I guess, 30 seconds to resolve his cell phone issue. If somebody would let me, Mr. Mentez.
Speaking one more time.
Certainly.
Okay. So I'm a numbers guy, I've been keeping track, and that's 26 people who have spoken tonight. None are in favor of this. 26 people between us and Zoom, none of them are in favor of this. I think that we also deserve answers to these questions. I sent an email to the town board in October, 19 specific questions about the ordinance, and I'm yet to hear back. And I think a lot of people have questions for a lot of things, and I think we deserve answers to these questions. So it seems like the majority is not in favor of this ordinance, is from what I'm hearing. And I think that we all deserve the answers to these emails that we sent to the town board.
I will just take exception though, Mr. Mentez. You did send an email with questions, but I also agreed to meet with you and 9 other STR owners and sit down and talk with you, and you canceled the meeting. I did not.
That's right, but after that, I canceled that meeting. I sent you those 19 questions in October, and I'm yet to get an answer.
I did give you an answer.
Your answer was, I agree with partial merit. That was it. I had 19 specific questions.
What I did was, I looked at your questions.
You didn't answer.
I agreed that some of them had merit and made changes based on the ones that I judged had merit enough to make changes.
That's not
Okay. Well, maybe next time you won't cancel the meeting when we decide to have it.
Whoa!
Because I was going to be here in person against 1 to 10 STR owners and have a discussion.
Okay.
I was prepared to do that. And you canceled.
And I appreciate that.
I'm just saying, you really have to take exception that you're saying that I'm just making it very clear that you didn't show up and I was willing to.
Everybody who's asking these questions.
I'm just saying, all right. I think I made
Frank
my point.
Purple's got a question.
Go.
Frank, if you can speak. Where'd you go, Frank?
Hello?
There he is. Go ahead, Frank, speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. So, Frank Purple here from Tower Point Road over at Silver Bay. And I was on the committee, for those who are listening, my position was very cautious to move this thing slowly and to do the things that are clearly good for the town, but take slowly the things that may jeopardize individual rights and so forth. And I've written thoroughly to the board a couple of times. I do want to say that Josh, now the supervisor, was the head of that committee and did an incredibly open-minded job. And people need to know that. And, we have differing opinions on the committee. There's no question about that. I just want to throw in one little thing that I think just got shoved aside even in the committee work, and that is that there are people like myself that have had a rental property. I've been there 30 years. The property's been a rental property exclusively for 70 years. And they're just seasonal cottages. And I'd like to see that separated from the rest. All the problems with new homeowners and people putting up nice little houses just for rent and all that kind of stuff. My houses cannot be rented in the winter for local people. They're strictly seasonal houses, so my tenants are a total benefit to the community and to the economy and no detraction whatsoever. I would somehow like to see that differentiated, and it was not agreed upon in the committee. But I just want to throw that out there. It's obviously my prejudice, but yeah, I got people there for 10 weeks who put a lot of money in the community, and then they're gone. They're not the same as, they're not taking up properties that other people could be living in and so forth. The water's turned off in October, if you get my point. So anyway, thanks Josh for all you've done, and the committee and everybody who's participated. End of sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Burkle.
Okay.
Apparently, there's no more questions online at this point. So may I speak?
You, Tim, you have the floor.
Thank you. How many of you live here all year round and are a local resident? How many of you actually participate to help yourselves out that don't live here all year round and don't ever have one concern about a local resident that lives here? How many of you don't live here all year round and are really concerned about the local resident? You're only concerned about your well-being of what you're doing. Because what you're doing is you're pushing out the local resident. These are going around, buying up all the properties and building homes. For your benefit. It's not an uncommon thing. God bless you. But the people that live up here don't have the same pay scale as everybody else. And what you're gonna do is make your taxes go up twice as much. Because none of you are considering the local resident. There's retired residents that moved up here because they could afford to live up here because they had a certain income. Then they had to go and rent out their homes so they could stay here and pay the taxes. Now they're selling their homes because they can't afford to stay here anymore. So how many of you really care about the local resident?
I do, and
That's
I'm
great,
insulted by what
that's
you
great.
said.
Don't be insulted by that.
I am.
Because you know what's gonna happen? You know what's gonna happen? The taxes are gonna get so high that
You don't have to tell
you're gonna be paying people that work here $100 an hour.
Our taxes just went up 40%.
I know.
We're paying for
Yeah.
fire, ambulance.
Hey. We can't do Q&A, right? Robert's
I didn't ask a
rules.
question, I didn't say
You did get asked a question.
That was insulting, and I don't care, that was insulting to me. I have no, and that's insulting.
You're all asking, you're all asking.
Tim has the floor. Tim, just make an effort to
All
lower your
right,
voice.
2 years. 2 years I tried to find a place to live here so I could stay in town. And I couldn't afford one. And you know what Mr. Dawson's comment was? It's cheaper to throw somebody out than let them live there for a month because then I gotta pay for.
Did you say I said that?
Yeah, that was your comment.
Hey, if you want a chance, I will give you it is an
I'll
open.
take that chance.
We're not gonna go.
I will take the chance.
We cannot do
What are
back
you
and
gonna do
forth.
about the local resident that stays here that works
Okay.
for this town and the fellow employees? What do you guys want to achieve for them? So they can stay here, we don't become Colorado. That's my question.
I would like to say something. Please, stop.
I think,
I'm
so
I would
if
like to
it's
say
personal,
something, please.
we can't get into personal vendettas.
All right, this
It's
is
not
not
the place.
personal vendetta.
I don't.
Excuse me.
Please, feel free.
I like to say things about me and other people on this lake that are like me, all right? My parents bought this house, we've had it for over 50 years. I was a teacher in Mariah for 3 years. I live here 6 months of the year. I try to do things in this town. We have a meeting, I go, we need to do things to boost up this community. What can I'd like to do, bring the art fair back. We're not gonna discuss it now. No one wants to do the Memorial Day parade. I'll do the Memorial Day parade. That's disgusting. I don't live in this town all year, but I would do that. And I know you. I've known you since you were a kid. Do you consider me to be that kind of person he's talking about? Do you? I've known you since you were a kid. I am insulted. And I think how you said
I'm sorry,
that is
I'm
very
insulted.
wrong.
I couldn't find a place to live here for 2 years and I had to buy a home.
Okay, that's enough. Tony, I think that we understand you don't agree with his statements. I don't think that you need to rebut it. I think it's very clear you do not agree that you said that. Agreed?
I will agree with that.
Okay.
I'll stipulate to that, yeah.
Okay. Did you have one more thing, if you want to keep it very brief?
All I want to say is there is no correlation between the rise in taxes and STRs. That is property prices went up during COVID. That's something we saw all over the United States, way up where I'm from in Rushton, here in Hague, Ticonderoga. They went up all over.
Did,
I just-
Kathy, if you could keep it very brief.
Sandy brought up a very good point, Sandy Russ. The last controversial ordinance was the noise ordinance. More people were against it, the town was pushing for it, and how that was solved is it went to public referendum on the vote. I'm seeing very large similarities here. Would you consider putting this on the ballot in November for the voters to say yay and nay?
All right, is there anyone else?
Yeah.
I mean, this would be the third time, sir.
Well, sorry. I don't understand the correlation between this and the rise in property values.
I know, I mean, if I wanted to stop every person that spoke and just try to dispel everything they said, we'd be here all night. And I know that you disagree with people's statements, but we just can't do that here. It's not the forum. We can't have a debate. I mean, Hague doesn't have a debate team. But I do appreciate your comment. Is there another one online that has to go?
Letting the unmute, and I'm not getting anything.
Okay.
But what were we trying to slow down progress? Because of the local feel, the local resident feel.
Okay. So, would anyone from the board like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. I think that, in fairness, let's just give the town board 2 minutes to collect their thoughts on what's been said. Mainly the reason I have to use the restroom. But I'm going to be right back. The town board, if they have comments, and then we're going to go from there, okay? So we did close the public hearing, correct? I think? Yes. We did. Would anyone from the town board like to make any comments about the, thank you for the recess, by the way, folks. What's that?
Kim's missing.
Oh, well, that's a problem. We're going to wait for Kim. Thank you.
Well,
I apologize.
Guess we're waiting for Kim. Is Kim out there, Tim? Yeah. Okay. No problem.
Yes.
Did anyone from the board have any comments for this public hearing?
I got one. This is my first go-around listening to the public over this because I'm a fill-in for a year at the moment. And it seems to me some of the major concerns that I think of this ordinance is health and safety. None of you guys talked about it. We're concerned about somebody burning up in a house because somebody doesn't have a smoke detector or CO2 detector in a house. Somebody dying. To me, this is more of what the ordinance should be striving for, you know, and to make sure the septic are safe, the water is good. You know, we would need to protect the people coming into this town. And if nobody out in that audience said anything over that, other than worried about where the money was coming from, or money we could be taking away from somebody. And there's a lot of great questions that came out, you know, and I think we need to answer some of them. And I think Kathy's correct. I do believe this should go to the public referendum and be voted on. But I wish you guys would think about it. It's about the public coming into town. No different than I do. I own a motel. I get inspected every year for water, sewer, fire inspections, you name it. Smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, they're here every year. And I believe if you're renting to the public, you should have the same rules as anybody else. That's all I can say.
I agree, we should have a vote. The town should vote on it.
Yes, please hold one moment. Dave is coming on to, what he needs to say. Thank you.
Who is this? This is time for the town board. Davis. Who is this, Tim? We gotta mute him. You gotta mute him. I mean, Dave has already spoke twice, with all due respect. The public hearing is closed. Maureen has spoken. Did you have anything further?
No, I just think the public should vote on it.
Steve, did you have anything further?
He raised some good points. It needs to be tightened up a little bit. It goes forward.
Jack, do you have anything further?
I need to speak up.
We need to listen.
What's that?
People couldn't hear him.
Yep. Steve, did you want to repeat what you just said?
Some good points were raised. If it's going to go forward, it needs to be tightened up a little bit and taken into consideration some of what the people were stating.
Jack?
I agree, we have to ponder what has been said tonight.
Okay. I guess I'll take the floor then. Did anyone anything else from the board? So I've been around for 3 go-arounds listening to the public hearing, and I have been a part of the changes of, well, two sets of changes for 2 sets of public hearings. We have compromised. We have tried to serve the best interest of the community. People complain about school tax in this town. Don't disagree with it. The town of Hague is paying a large portion of the bill. But it's also important to understand we used to send 167 children. We now send around 30, okay? Our community is dwindling. If you go on Zillow right now, there are 2 homes for sale in this town. They are both, the cheapest homes are $400,000 each. They are nothing to write home about. It is not a deal, okay? That's why they're still for sale. Do I admit that there's ambiguity in terms of how things are going to be dealt with? I absolutely agree. There's ambiguity there. It's subjective. It has to be that way. That's the way all of these local laws are written. We have to rely on somebody, a zoning administrator, and you know what? That's why we have a town board. If that person is not acting justly and fairly, and nobody here actually brought up the fact that there is a judicial process for appeals. Furthermore, I just feel like we are going in circles on this. If that's the route that the town wants to go, to send it to a public referendum, I have no problem with it, but I feel very strongly the 3-year waiting period is absolutely just and fair and will be applied to property owners consistently throughout. We are essentially trying to discourage very clearly investors coming into Hague and turning residential homes that are within that, I'm going to just go with a broad number, $100,000 to $350,000 price range, from buying them for that only purpose. And that, the data does show, in my mind, from what I've seen, just things coming on the market, they buy those houses and then they become STRs. They're not there anymore. There's nothing left. The local people in this town, so I grew up here. I've been here my entire life. I wintered in Florida a couple of years, I will admit that. But is the document a little bit too wordy for me? Absolutely. There's nothing, though, that's ever going to be a perfect document. I'm happy with the document. If I thought the town board would vote it through, I would vote yes tonight. I will be very clear on that. You would get a yes, and I'd look you in the eye when I said it. But I'm just prepared to put this to rest. If the answer's no, then that's the answer, and I absolutely agree with that. But let's just be clear on this. You're all here because you have a vested monetary interest in STRs, okay? And the rest of the community, not everybody, but I'd say the majority of the people on Zoom and here had a vested interest in STRs. I know all those people on those back roads that aren't here tonight, okay? They are people that I call friend. And believe me, they don't want to come down here and argue with you, but you know what? I don't have many of them disagreeing with me on it when I run into them on the, you know, here and there, Fish and Game Club, wherever that happens to be. So, I think as a whole community, this document serves the best interest of the town of Hague and its community in its entirety. Now, you're part of that community, but there is a lot of people that don't want to come down here and go back and forth. I mean, historically, the second public hearing, I don't know if it was 50-50, but we had a lot of people that spoke out.
It was 50-50.
It was very close to 50-50. A lot of people that came out and said, you know what, this is a problem. I think the document is fair. I don't think we're taking away your right. I think that we're giving you the right to continue. We're striking balance. You know,
I've listened to Josh, and I talked to these other supervisors, there's other towns that have put these together, okay? And, you know, the complaints that they have, you know, one town I talked to, they had 2 complaints after it was passed, minor. I talked to another supervisor in another town who had 1 complaint. There's a few little things in there like noise ordinance, just a couple things that could be tightened up and stuff like that. But again, you know, I concur with what Josh said. We'll have a regular board meeting. You guys aren't here for a regular board meeting. Let's face it. Your faces are never here. We have people that were at the regular board meeting today that got up and left when this was coming up. So, you know, you've got to weigh those things together again. What's going to be best for the community is the way to go. And again, I don't think that having a law that could be tweaked maybe a little bit here, a little bit there, is that bad of an issue either. You guys, I never see you guys at the regular board meetings.
I attend Zoom.
Well, that's great. But, you know, I'm just telling you, we had people here that were regular board meeting, when this came up, they left. So, you know, all we're listening to is you guys' complaints and cautions. So we can address those if we have to tighten it up a little bit. There's a few places I think we can tighten it up. But there's no reason not to do it for many good reasons that Josh has just said.
Can I say something? I know I'm not a town board member, but when I did the count for the short-term rentals that are in Hague currently, the year before this, the information was provided from the county. That same information had those same people on it, the same 55. So in a year's time, there was 26 additional Airbnbs in the town of Hague from the previous year. I'm just like to point that out because I did do those numbers.
That's because they did the 4% bed tax, Warren County had to register.
Well, those are the ones,
right.
I went online and I did, like I said, I went to all the short-term rental, because I had who was renting from the county, yes, because they are registered with the county. But there is 26 homes out there that when I did that tally, that were not on Warren County, and I had all the names who are on that 55 and addresses, so I was able to compare. So where I can comfortably sit here and tell you that there was 26 additional.
I think that the county had something worked out with Airbnb and Veerbro that Swan was keeping track of. And when he talked to the Airbnb head cheeses, he told people, you know, go to the county and let the county know what the hell's going on. I think that Veerbro thing was part of it too. So they had a pretty good track of Airbnbs and Veebros down there at the county. And again, if it's an individual doing it and, you know, they don't have any idea unless the law is passed where they do tell the county, then the county can, you know, look at it that way. So there's sides, and I think that, again, you guys don't come to these regular meetings. I never see you guys here. Thank you.
So, you know, when we say tighten it up a little bit, I don't think there's any version of that you're going to walk in here and you're going to support this document.
Well, that's probably true. Again,
you know, I'm told that I'm It's better to always have the support of your board when you move forward, but I've been a part of this from day one. I chaired the committee, and it's time to bring it to a head. I've taken this document and I've read it over a multitude of times. Like I said, it's a little wordy for me. I'm not an attorney, but it is what it is. John, is the document legally sound in your opinion as town council?
I believe it is.
And I concur, because I read the other ones too. You know, you could take the other ones and put Hague in what they've done in place of the other towns. It would almost be similar to what we've got right here. There's a couple things in there that maybe we could tighten up, you know, noise ordinance and stuff like that. But the rest of the thing are pretty much in tune with the other towns around here. And again, one town had one complaint, handled it. Another town close here had 2 complaints, handled it. So again, I understand everybody's looking out for their own pocket.
So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion. I, Joshua Patchett, make a motion to pass the resolution authorizing the adoption of local law number 1 of 2024 entitled a local law regulating short-term rentals in the town of Hague.
Is there a second?
I'm waiting what's that? I made the motion. I mean, if anyone from the board wants to make a second, they are welcome to do so.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote. I guess I'll start it off. Yes.
Jack? Yes.
No.
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 Okay. The document does not pass by a vote of 3-2 for public record. Okay? Would anyone here from the town board entertain a motion to close the meeting?
I just got a couple things. Are we going to try to resolve the questions that they have, or are we just going to ignore the questions?
Marty, I guess I feel that I have been through this so much, but I would welcome you to resolve these questions and rework the document, Marty. I feel like I've been through it. I've been through it twice. I'll go through it again. I don't feel like... I wasn't
part of the committee, so I mean...
I just don't know how I'm going to get people to support it, Marty.
Well, why don't we take a listen to what these folks have said tonight on a couple things and see if we could just mesh some of that stuff there. Marty can join it. I'd be happy to help. And then, you know, Jack could maybe come and work on it. But then bring it up to what these people have been stating tonight that need to be tweaked. The other towns haven't had problems. They've had it in for years. You know, I understand you're only looking out for your own pocketbook, and I can appreciate that. We have to watch and look out for the whole town. And I don't care if you like what I'm saying or not. That's how it goes.
Let Jack have the floor.
I think the division in the committee or in the board is the same that you've heard in town. I think we need to seriously consider putting it up to a vote of the citizens and residents and taxpayers of the town.
Wait, I'd like to say something about that. You know, Jack, if you want to have a vote for every goddamn thing we do in town, we'll get nothing done.
Steve, let's be courteous. Let's be courteous.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Respect Jack's opinion.
I respect it, but you know, all right. So let's bring something up next month that some people don't like. I'm sorry. and then we can vote on it in the town. Maybe Marty, you got something that you like. The town doesn't like it. I mean, you can't run a business this way.
Can I just take a moment and answer Marty though? Marty, I'm happy to answer any questions. I just don't see any version of this that they're going to walk in and feel that it's fair. I don't know how that's going to happen.
Just throwing it out there.
What are some of the questions? What are some of the questions that the board, or that maybe people?
I mean, there was a bunch of asks
But they were
tonight.
all the same.
What do you mean? Put it together and see what they were.
There are a whole bunch of questions that I would like to get answered, frankly, that I think are very valid questions that have been posed in writing in a deliberate manner that we have not answered fairly. I don't understand the answer to. I think Marty's suggestion of
I mean, a simple
listing those, putting together some
listing of the questions and our answers to it might help.
I mean, a simple one, somebody asked how are we gonna enforce it? We're gonna have to hire more employees of the town to enforce it. That's where the extra money's coming from for the permit. I mean, to me, those are the questions we should get to the public and let them know how this stuff is gonna work. We sat here and didn't say a word to them, but now we got questions, we can respond to those.
You're gonna have to hire another help.
Well, we didn't tell them how it was gonna work.
Yeah, but Marty, this is the third go around.
Josh, then don't do it. I'm just saying, say no.
I think I'm just saying, I've run point on this for quite some time. I've tried to mold the document in the best interest of the community based on public comment. And if I'm willing to work with the town board, but somebody else has to be a part of it other than me, molding the document.
Well, where's the committee?
The committee has been disbanded. They put together the document. We were primarily in agreement on the document, and that's what it's come to.
He wasn't the supervisor at the time that they were putting the document together, so now he's the supervisor, so now he has the document, plus everything else, plus being the supervisor. So I think with what Josh said, having the support from other board members to help to answer the questions and take the burden from him, and if that's what would make everybody in the town happy, then maybe that's something to look at.
I'm open to discussions on it further, but I feel like I've individually taken all the comments as far as I can go as Josh taking public comment and forming a document. I've publicly stated that I support it as is, and that's where I'm at.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
So moved. Second.